So this morning we're doing an air service in the workshop, which nice little treat, be inside to do it. So it's a Mercedes Econic Euro 5. So what we'll do, we'll put it on time lapse and you can have a watch of us do it. It's nice to use a pit, and then we'll just talk you through what you actually do look for in a 6-weekly inspection. So these Econics are pretty bulletproof. There's not much goes wrong with them, to be fair. The majority of stuff that we do get with them will purely be wear items. Apart from that, electrics, drivetrain, everything else bulletproof on them. For the work they're doing on and off landfill sites and all the rest of it, they are a real good product. So yeah, it's before I started working here, I'd never really worked on Mercedes, but been here since December 2021, and I must admit I do like them. They are good to work on and what have you. So yeah, we'll get this air service done and might be on time then. What I did yesterday, I fetched in the workshop yesterday afternoon before I went home, did what we call a shake and brake on it while there was a lad here rolling me in this morning. So your shake and brakes basically get someone to shake steering for you while you watch all steering joints, make sure there's no excessive movement in them and what have you, and then you press foot brake, handbrake, foot brake, that sort of thing, and check for air leaks and what have you, make sure there's no air leaks on them. So it does make it easier when there's somebody else. But what I'll do, I'll show you what I do when I'm on site and how I check the steering joints on site, and then you can see how it's done when it's a one-man operation. Right, so I'll just show you quickly what we look for in inspections. Obviously, steering joints, did the shake and brake yesterday, no excessive play in them. Check the brake chambers, make sure there's no corrosion in them. Pipes coming off them, make sure they're not rubbing on anything. All ferrules are alright, they're not rusty or excessively rusty. And then on this side, same again, check your steering joints, airbags, part work, make sure there's nothing chaffing. And then what I tend to do is work my way backwards. Check the prop shaft bolts, make sure they're all tight. And then here you'll see there's a little metal seal on the tachograph with a thing on the end of it there, tab on the end, make sure that's sealed and it's all correct. And then work my way backwards again, checking all the air tanks are secure, no corrosion on the air tanks, same with the part work, make sure it's all secure, same with it. And then what you'll see I did on the time lapse was on the prop shaft here, the centre bearing, this rubber mounting here, I just get hold of it, see if there's any play in it. There's no movement in that, so it's a good one. Sometimes they wear, you get a bit of lift in them. If you start getting lift in them, get them changed, because it won't be long before it's the side of the road where it drops off. And then also check the bolts on the brackets, make sure they're all tight, no movement again. Work your way backwards, same again on the second steer. Checking the airbags for corrosion, make sure there's no relaxed cords in it, make sure there's no unusual marks on it or anything like that as though it's been rubbing on something. Now what you will see on this airbag here, you can see the rusty mark on the bottom and that mark there. That is purely because I've got the suspension blown up to the top. If it was sat at right height, that there is just where the bag's been folded under, and that's why you've got that marking on it. Same again there, check the chambers, all the part work. Moving back to the back side of the axle, check these pipes aren't heavily corroded, which they're not, they're all good. This ram here steers this axle. Check these pipes here, not chaffing. What these Econics are bad for doing is these clips slide down, they end up with two pipes together like that and they start rubbing against each other, which is an MOT fail. Airbags again. This one's had a new airbag on this side here, and it's had a new airbag on this side here at the back as well. You check your brake chambers again, all your part work. You probably can't see, but when you look inside here you can see the brake pads on the drive axle, so you can see they're all fine as well. So me personally, this truck, I'll wash it and I'll send it for MOT. So what I'm going to do now with it is jack the back axle up, rotate the wheels, check the tyres, make sure they're all alright, no cuts, no relaxed cords in the tyre walls or anything like that. And also by spinning the wheels like that, you get to see if there's a caliper sticking or just holding on a little bit. I've done a brake test on it prior to fetching it in. There was no excessive drag on the axle, which tells me the calipers are alright. When I did the shake and brake yesterday, when the lad was pressing the brake pedal for me, I could see the brake chambers and calipers moving, so that also told me they're not seized up. But I always like to jack them up and rotate them anyway. And I'm jacking it up to rotate the tyres, so that's just the bit that tells you that the caliper's definitely not seized up. So luckily for me, I've struck lucky with this truck. It's on what we call auto lube, which we've discussed before. Now I'll show you this front kingpin here. You can see the auto lube's working. You've got grease running out of it, so that doesn't need greasing. The only thing I will have to do is fill the auto lube tub up, which isn't an issue. That's a nice easy job. And yeah, we'll get doing and crack on a bit. What we do on a steered axle as well, it's got what we call the kingpins on it, which allow the axle to turn. You've just got to check for play in them. So all we do, tyre lever under the tyre and just press down on it, and that one, absolutely no play in it whatsoever. Which, to be fair, these Mercedes Econics are really good on kingpins, not like some other trucks like your DAFs and stuff where you can get a bit of play in them. But when you look at the tester's manual, it's phenomenal how much play you're actually allowed in a kingpin. So what we'll do, same again, bear under it, absolutely no play in it again. So as I was saying before about checking steering joints when I'm on my own, what I do, I've got a pair of these grips like this. How you do, sit it over the top like that, onto your ball joint, squeeze it. As you can see there, me squeezing it, there's no play in that ball joint whatsoever. Now, what I do, if I find a ball joint that looks like when you're doing your shaking your brake, it's got excessive movement in it, I then get them grips on it to determine whether it needs a ball joint or not, because of the amount of play in it. Some ball joints do move up and down a bit when they're being shook. It doesn't mean the ball joints wants replacing. Sometimes you just have that bit of play in them, but it's serviceable. Yeah. So if you see one bounce up and down, don't start getting your parts going out and firing ball joints all over a truck, because you'll find that's all you're ever doing is changing ball joints when they don't realistically need changing. So all I do, get my grips on it, squeeze it. There's no play in it. It's a good one. Depending on the amount of play that's in it, off the top of my head I can't remember, I have to refer to the tester's manual exactly what you're allowed in them, but you get to know over the years just by squeezing them whether it's a pass or a fail on MOT and whether it's safe or not. So yeah, that is pretty much how you inspect a truck. Probably I've missed some bits off because I do it without thinking and I haven't explained it properly, but it's just natural to you, to what you're checking for and what you're looking for. So every A service, as far as I'm concerned, is like an MOT inspection. If you wouldn't take the vehicle for MOT after you've A serviced it, you haven't A serviced it correctly. Simple as that. As they keep saying, and the DVSA say, MOT is minimum standard. So you've got to go above and beyond that minimum standard all the time. Which luckily here at CPD we do, and it's not one of them companies where they're scrimping and scraping on parts. You get these companies where they don't want to fit it, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do X, Y and Z until it comes to MOT time. The problem with that is when you start firing parts all over a truck for MOT and it goes for MOT and the tester's looking at a truck that's full of brand new parts, it tells them a story of how your maintenance is done throughout the year. they know straight away the truck's full of parts, that truck's not getting maintained correctly throughout the year. So there we go, or should I say, that's my opinion anyway. Right, so my inspection sheet, the only defects I've found on this truck is the driver's side washer jet's not working correctly, driver's side night light's not working, which is basically the green light in the cab and the roof, and the offside side indicator's not working, the side repeater. So nice and easy, and as far as I'm concerned, that truck can literally get washed and go for MOT now. Right, so we've got cab up now, so under cab inspection, intercooler parts, make sure they're alright, there's nothing chaffing, everything looks good. Belt, check the belt, make sure everything's right on the belt, and then also make sure there's no play in the tensioners or anything like that, or the water pump, stuff like that. And then what I tend to do is come around this side here, you can see, checking the exhaust manifold bolts, make sure none of them are snapped off. And then we have the power steering reservoir down here at the bottom, so we check the level on that, check the level on the header tank, make sure there's plenty of water in it, and basically just make sure everything's secure as it should be. And then same again on the near side of the engine, just check everything's secure, everything's right. And on these, as you can see there, we have a dipstick, which we don't have on the Euro 6, everything's done on the dashboard to check the oil level and what have you. Now, to me it's absolute madness. Why would you do a dipstick on an engine? You're constantly, all you're doing then is relying on sensors, wiring, everything else on an engine. So, such a simple thing to put a dipstick on an engine. I don't mind, but the Euro 6 have got a dipstick tube there, no dipstick in them. Just come on Mercedes, let's get a dipstick on them. Let's make life easy. Cab's coming up on inspection anyway, so that way makes it so easy. Not that I've ever had one fault yet, but there's always that first time for everything, isn't there? So yeah, to me, let's get a dipstick on them, boys. And the other thing you need to do, always torque your wheel nuts on inspection, always. The marks have moved or not, still torque them, you know you're right then. 99.9% of the time they're always good, but always get them torqued up, lads. Right, so I've done that air service, body and bin inspection and the defects. What I decided to do after that was my job for Monday morning. I fetched in, which is also an air service, and it's got an ABS fault on it. So my plan was fetch it in, have a look at the ABS fault, scan it with Texer, see what it's coming up with, and then if it was something I've not come across before or a bit of an head scratcher, I'll do a bit of research over the weekend then while I'm at home and find out the likely cause of it and what it could be. I like to do that, just then I've got the heads up for Monday morning. When I jump back into the job on Monday, it makes it a bit easier for me then as well. On that air service that I've just done, what I didn't show you was the cab checks. So what I'll do, I'll video the cab checks that I'm doing now, and then you can see basically what a full air service is, what we check for in the cab and what we need to be working and stuff like that. So I'll crack on with it. Right, so I was saying, air service in the cab, basically take ignition on, see what faults you've got coming up, if any, and then as you can see the ABS lights just come back on now to say braking characteristics may change. Yep, indicators, yep, telltales all working on dash. And then what I do then is turn side lights on, make sure it dash is illuminating correctly, headlights, and make sure the fog light warning is coming on as well, which it is doing. Then I always check the hazard warning light to make sure that's flashing as well as the telltales. And then what I do is dump the air down and then rebuild it back up and make sure it's built up within the 3 minutes allotted time for the MOT. That can be done on tick over. It doesn't have to be revved, but we do tend to rev up just to do it a bit quicker because the testers do that as well. But as long as it's built up within 3 minutes to the minimum on tick over, then that's a pass on MOT. Also, when you've dropped the air, you've got to make sure it comes up with the stop and telling you that the air pressure is down low. So what I'll do, I'll get this built up now, and then I'll just show you the rest of the cab checks quick, and then we'll jump into this ABS fault. Yeah, so we're checking everything's working in the cab, horn works, washers, wipers, and they're clearing the screen correctly as well, which is a biggie. So we do check the seat belts, make sure they're returning back as they should do. Plug it in, make sure when you pull it, it's locking as well. Yep. Ministry plate, that's up here at the back of the cab, that's all there, it's all corresponding to the vehicle, right registration number, right chassis number, that's good. Now these older ones, they're on lap belts, not on the full seat belt on the middle seats, for the crew seats. So they're all good as well. So tacho wise, press OK, print out vehicle, and then scroll down to get your technical data. Print out your technical data. Now on your technical data, what's on here is what's on your tachograph plate on the side of the truck, and it's always good just to check your K factor, your L factor are all the same, and the tyre sizes are the same, just to make sure there's not been an error when the tacho's been calibrated. So what you end up with on your printout is a big long till receipt like that. Now on here, I'll see if you can see it or not. This was last calibrated by Ribblesdale Autos at Preston, and as you can see, you got your W factor, your K factor, and your L factor, which we'll check on the plate at the side. You've got your tyre size, you've got the date, so the mileage it was calibrated, the speed limit is set at 90 kilometres. That's the date it was last done, 4th of the 3rd 2022, so it's not due calibration now till the 4th of March 2024. If you come down to the tachograph plate here, you've got your K factor, your W factor and your L factor, which are all the same as what's on my till receipt. You've got the VIN number of the vehicle, and then you've got the serial number of the tachograph, and then you've got the tyre size as well, and that's your date that you calibrated there. So you've always got to check for that. The other thing you check for to make sure, you've got a calibrated speed sticker there, which is 90 kilometers per hour, and you've got to have one of them on as well. Right, so I've scanned it with the Texer now, and it's telling me rear left and front right solenoid valve, and yeah, so what we'll do, we'll have a look into that one now, and hopefully it shouldn't be something too technical. Failing that, there'll be a bit of research over the weekend, and yeah, we'll have a look. Right, so change of plan. I've decided what I'm going to do. I'm going to crack on and get the air service done, see what the defects we've got on it. So if any of you have any ideas, drop them in comments below, and we'll look at that air service on Monday, that defect on Monday. I'm just going to do the rest of the air service now, and then Monday morning I can just jump onto defects and stuff like that, and that'll get that job done a bit quicker. So yeah, so I'm going to do, wrap this video up now, and everybody have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, catch you in a bit.